Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, there is now a tremendous amount of pressure building on President Trump to reclassify or reschedule marijuana, i.e. cannabis, as a much lesser drug. In other words, currently now at the federal level, I understand there are many states that have legalized medicinal marijuana, and there are other states as well that have, like here in Massachusetts, as an example, where they have legalized even recreational marijuana. Believe me, I know, because I drive down Route 1, as I pointed out a couple shows ago, every second freaking billboard, I'm not kidding, is an advertisement for a pot shop. It's and by the way, now apparently you can get it home delivered. So not only do you have drive-through, like fast food style marijuana edibles, whatever, bongs, however you want to smoke this thing, but you can also have it delivered to your home. So it's a thriving multi-billion-dollar business, and corporate America, and there are big business, big corporate interests now that see even more money with pot, with cannabis, with marijuana than they do with tobacco. And if the trends continue, listen now to this, big pot is going to be bigger than big tobacco or even big pharma. That's how much they believe there is potential growth in the market for getting people addicted to weed. And so there is growing pressure on President Trump to reclassify marijuana from what's called a Schedule 1 drug at the federal level to a Schedule 3 drug. A Schedule 1 drug, because you may ask, Jeff, what the hell is a Schedule 1 drug? And why is a Schedule 3 drug categorized as a much lesser drug or much lesser dangerous drug? So a Schedule 1 drug is a drug like LSD, that's considered Schedule 1, or heroin, also Schedule 1, that according to federal researchers and federal health medical guidelines, has no medical value whatsoever. In other words, you don't give it. You don't give it to anybody for any reason. And you do everything you can to prevent it from being given to anybody or imported into the country or distributed on the street, because it's considered a very dangerous, and the other point is, a highly addictive drug. Well, marijuana is still at the federal level considered a Schedule 1 drug. Trump now is under great pressure to reclassify it as a Schedule 3 drug, meaning a much less dangerous drug that has some medical or medicinal value, and also is considered nowhere near as addictive as, say, heroin or LSD. Now, ketamine is an example of a Schedule 3 drug. Testosterone is considered a Schedule 3 drug. You have others, steroids are considered a Schedule 3 drug. So they want to reclassify marijuana and basically now make it, I don't want to say acceptable, but much more widely available and considered much less dangerous and much less addictive than other more quote-unquote hard drugs like, say, meth or heroin or LSD, or take your pick. Listen now to President Trump saying he will be making a decision very soon in consultation, obviously, with Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., and he says, I understand the arguments of both sides. It's a complicated issue, but he is now leaning towards reclassifying marijuana as a much less dangerous and addictive drug. Roll cut 23, a mic.
There's reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early. But, somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things.
So basically, Trump is still on the fence, hasn't made a decision. He is being lobbied ferociously. I mean, it is an all-out lobbying campaign as I said, by Big Pot, by corporate America, very strong corporate interests, but even then, by even members of his own political coalition, libertarians who love the idea of legalized pot. It's not enough that it's here in Massachusetts and in other states. They want it in all 50 states, and they believe by reclassifying it, sort of like, like ketamine or like something, something much more mild, that they can have this become considered more mainstream, more acceptable, which will make it easier for their campaign when they go to state after state, primarily in red state America, and have it completely legalized recreationally, not just medicinally, but recreationally. Now, just for the record, people need to know this. The man that really spearheaded and funded the initial drive to have pot, weed, marijuana, cannabis, however you want to call it, legalized across the United States is George Soros. This is an undeniable fact. This is the same man that pushed open borders. This is the same man that said he wants to replace Americans with third worlders. This is the same man that put in soft on crime district attorneys to allow violent predators and criminals to roam our streets. And a major reason why he is pushing for the legalization of marijuana is because he ultimately wants to dumb down the intelligence, dumb down, if you want to put it, the national IQ of the United States. He wants a nation of stoners. A nation of stoners, and this is what many socialists want. That's why up in Canada, they've completely legalized marijuana, thanks to Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister. Many countries in Europe now, weed is completely legal, so-called progressive left-wing countries. And I could go on, because they want a populace that is stoned, that is addicted to drugs, that is lazy, that has suffered a little bit of brain damage from regular, frequent, heavy use, because that makes them controllable and pliable. What you don't hear from the media, which is bought and paid for, essentially, by the big pot lobby, is they try to present marijuana as your parents' pot. When they were growing up, listening to the Beatles or listening to the Rolling Stones, say in the 1960s or the 1970s. And, they got some marijuana that they grew from a plant or whatever, that, which had, by the way, about 2 to 3% THC content, low THC. That marijuana was a much more milder, less addictive drug. The drug now, marijuana today, is a completely different drug than your parents' marijuana. What they're selling in these cannabis, these so-called pot shops, what you're buying at these dispensaries, the average THC content, please listen to this, it's not 2 to 3%. It's 15 to 25%. In some cases, I kid you not, you can get THC content that's practically 100% pure. I mean, 99.9%. At that level of THC, forget 99%, at the 15 to 25% THC content that you are seeing being sold now, whether it's these brownies, edibles, bongs, whether you eat it, smoke it, I don't care. Now they put it into food. There's like pot pizzas, pot cheeseburgers, pot tacos, pot chicken nuggets, you name it. That content is 5, 6, 7 times more potent than what your parents' pot was. And what that means in plain English, it is much more addictive. In fact, it is highly addictive. And I'm going to give you the numbers. The numbers are going to stun you now at how many young people in this country and around the world are becoming seriously addicted to weed, this new powerful weed. But on top of that, it literally destroys IQ points. Over long-term frequent use, it destroys your brain. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly, a couple more minutes, and then I want to go to the phone lines. President Trump now is going to make a very big decision when it comes to marijuana in terms of its reclassification. He's under tremendous pressure, as I said in my opening monologue, to reclassify marijuana as a much less potent, addictive, and frankly, a much less dangerous drug. And the reason why he's being pressured to do this is because there is now a massive lobby backed by, I'm talking real money. We're talking billionaires, corporate magnates, corporate interests that now look at pot and have openly said, we see now more money in legal weed than we have ever seen with cigarettes, with tobacco. Frankly, even Big Pharma is now saying big pot can overtake Big Pharma. I'm talking tens and tens of billions of dollars. They see almost an unlimited market now for legalized weed, so they want to use this reclassification to then push legalization, full recreational legalization in all 50 states. About 25 states, including obviously Massachusetts, recreational marijuana is 100% legal. Forget just growing it in your own home. They've got dispensaries, pot shops. Frankly, I think that's all we have now. Some of the great listeners of this audience sent me statistics. Apparently, we have almost 400 pot shops, and some of them are huge. You know, drive through the whole bit across just the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. 400. I think it's like 390, 395. So almost 400. This is big business. Now, what we were not told during the debate over whether weed should be legalized, and what those who are pushing for legal pot refuse to say, and this is the dark underbelly, is that now in study after study after study, whether it's the University of Michigan, whether it's multiple universities in Great Britain, whether it's our own CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I want you now to listen to this. According now to the latest numbers, young adults, and they categorize young adults as 18 years old to 30 years old. 30% now of young adults, almost a third, say that they regularly, and by regularly they mean almost daily, 20 days out of 30 days a month, now smoke or eat or whatever, they take marijuana. They are hardcore into marijuana use. Basically, it's almost every day. And that trend is going up. It went from 17% to 21% to 26% to now 30%. Now, researchers say if this trajectory continues, a majority of the country will be using marijuana in about a decade to 15 years. So we are becoming a nation of stoners. There's no question. Furthermore, one of the big selling points of marijuana, legalized weed, was the revenue. You tax it, and then the state coffers would be full of all this extra tax revenue. Well, in the states, say like Colorado, which was the first state to legalize weed, recreational marijuana, in fact, it's been a big money loss. Why? Because for every dollar that they get in tax revenue, they have to spend $10 to deal with the devastating side effects that heavy, regular, daily marijuana use leads to. And this is the other thing they don't tell you. DUIs, marijuana only DUIs. I'm not saying mixed with alcohol. They're just, yeah, man, we're going to hit the road, man. Hey, how's my driving, man? You're parked, man, but it's still good, man. Okay, I'm talking, you're just stoned. DUI car crashes have exploded, literally have exploded in states where marijuana has become legalized. Furthermore, it is leading now to a massive crisis in depression, suicide thoughts, many people committing suicide. It is leading to anxiety. In fact, doctors now are reporting record cases of what is called, I've never heard of this term before, but they're not just crashing cars, they're not just committing suicide, but apparently they're also being rushed to emergency rooms with their cannabis-induced what's called scromiting, which is uncontrollable screaming and vomiting at the same time. And apparently it's getting worse and worse and worse. Now, out of England, just so that you know, they did a controlled study. In other words, they took a group of people, same education level, they don't drink alcohol, very similar in age, very similar in background, and they studied them as they went through the process of going from 18 years old to 38 years old. When they were 18, when they were 21, when they were 26, when they were 28, when they were 38. And they kept checking them regularly. One group never used marijuana. The other group smoked marijuana frequently, consistently, regularly. Over the course of 20 years, the group that smoked marijuana regularly lost 8 IQ points. 8. In other words, it did literally, it did brain damage. And IQ points, once you've lost them, it's permanent. You can never get them back. And so, as the researchers say, it literally dumbs you down. Now, I'm not saying you smoke a joint or you eat an edible, suddenly, you start voting like Bill in Sudbury, okay? I'm not saying that. Or you become an automatic moonbat. But the statistics are clearly in. Okay, lines are loaded. I want to go right to the phone lines. Just very quick exclamation point, because I think this number is going to shock all of you. And again, I want to return to my original monologue. The THC content in today's marijuana, which you get at a dispensary shop, again, or at a pot shop or whatever, is 5, 6, literally 7 times more potent and powerful than anything, your parents, my parents never did drugs. They were not hippies. They weren't part of that whole thing. But, if your parents were into drugs in the 60s and 70s, it was much less addictive and it was much milder than the kind of what's happened now with marijuana, because there is such big money behind it. They want recurring customers. They realize this is unlimited billions of dollars. So they're making it as addictive as powerful as possible. They're making it as powerful as possible. And now we're seeing some devastating side effects. According to the CDC, I'm just going now by, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and HHS and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. 3 out of 10 Americans, 3 out of 10, that's a staggering number, are addicted to marijuana. That's how much is being consumed. That's how much people smoke it or eat it or whatever they do now with it. And again, they've done study after study. When they look at the brains, they do a brain scan of people who are regular, frequent users of marijuana. The circuitry of the brain is that of an addict. That it is clearly now highly, highly addictive. Now, very quickly, because this is from a good friend of mine, and he knows about this. I mean, he knows this like the back of his hand. And he said, Jeff, you are 1,000% correct. The reclassification of marijuana is all about and only about the money. The current federal classification fouls up the banks in their greed to handle the money and take a big cut for themselves. In other words, you can't pay for marijuana or the derivative products with a credit card. Oh, I didn't know this. Cash only. Well, the banks now want to get in on the action. They want credit card. And credit card means they can get a cut out of all the credit card use or the debit cards that are used. So that's why the banks are moving in as well. And he goes on to say, Jeff, the reason why George Soros and the left have been pushing marijuana is that it's all part of their progressive plan. They want us, quote unquote, duped through the media, who lie to us, doped, i.e. marijuana, and dead, the mRNA shots. And this person goes on to say, and again, he's completely right, Jeff, please remind your listeners that this new marijuana, the cancer-causing compounds in marijuana smoke, are hundreds of times more concentrated than in tobacco smoke. Furthermore, the risks of heart attack and cardiovascular problems are more than double in regular marijuana users than in non-users. Now, that's the other thing the CDC and all these other studies show, is that lung cancer, throat cancer have now skyrocketed through people who use marijuana only. They're not smoking tobacco. They're not vaping. They're not using nicotine products. They're just using marijuana. So we're being lied to about the health effects, not just the mental health effects, not just obviously the damage to long-term IQ, not just the fact that it leads people to have suicide thoughts, but literally it's bad for your heart. It's bad for your lungs. It can lead to cancer. Now, we were never told that when they pushed for legalized weed. They made it seem like it's your parents' pot. You stay at home. You have a little joint. Who's going to be hurt by that? Big money is now deeply involved. They want you hooked. They want it as addictive, powerful, and potent as possible. And they don't care how many people it kills or how many lives they destroy. To me, no way should this now be reclassified. Absolutely not. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Gary in Lynn. You're going to kick us off, Gary. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Jeff.
Hi, Gary.
Let me just put this bone out for you. I can tell you everything you want to know about it, Jeff. I'll give you a quick rundown of my life first, and you can ask me anything you want. I started smoking pot when I was 13. I was a little bit of an outcast. I also started taking judo about that time. I got horrible grades in school. I was a C student. By the time I got out of high school, I was valedictorian. I was an electrical engineer. I was designing medical equipment. I went to Northeastern University. I got my electrical engineering degree. I graduated valedictorian there. From there, I designed the first digital ultrasound machine. I designed 2 web inspection machines for Alcoa Corporation. I then went on to design the first USB chip. And then I had my 4th child, and I had to become a stay-home dad. So I had to become a stay-home dad, and then I was still smoking pot this whole time and doing some other drugs, drinking too much, of course. And I became a stay-home dad. And then I did that for a while. And while I was a stay-home dad, I started a second job. I became the first MP3 digital DJ. I DJ'd weddings. I DJ'd weddings, Jeff, where I was a digital photographer and an MP3 DJ, and I did the whole wedding by myself. I would have the computer play the music with the first MP3 DJ software ever invented, and I would go around and take all the pictures. I did that for about 15 years, and then my kids grew up. They went to school, and I didn't have much to do, so I screwed around for a while, and I got into an accident, got a car accident, got a bad head injury. And I was out of it. I almost died. I got med-flighted 3 times, and I was on 7 drugs for 5 years. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I was a mumbling idiot. My wife had to come with me to the doctor's appointments and speak for me for my doctor's appointment because I could not talk. Because the medications the doctors put me on were too much, and they were treating me for AFib and for my seizures. I was having seizures twice a week. And that went on for about 2 years, and I was going downhill. They told me I had about 10 years to live. I then started taking CBD because I smoked marijuana all my life, and I heard about CBD. So I started taking CBD, and I started taking it heavily. There's a prescription drug called Epidiolex. It's a prescription drug made out of CBD just for epileptics. And it's proved helpful for about 50% of epileptics. For about 10% of epileptics, it's the only treatment that will stop them from having seizures. And that's where the problem starts. So I started taking that, and I got rid of my seizures. So now I'm down from 7 medications down to 2 medications. I am doing 300 active zones a week on my Fitbit. I'm in the best
Gary,
shape.
long story short, I think what you're trying to say is that for you, marijuana has not impeded your ability to be a highly functioning, creative, intelligent person, A, and B, and I'm very sorry to hear about what happened to you. I really am. But it actually has helped you deal with your seizures and the accident that you had. So what you're saying is for medicinal purposes, you also highly recommend it because you're saying on you and for you, it's worked, correct? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go back to Gary in Lynn. Gary says he's been smoking pot or weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, since the age of 13, that he's a highly creative, highly functional person. He's made a lot of inventions. He's been had a very successful career. He then had a very serious accident, which really it's very bothersome to hear that. But anyway, he thanked the Lord. He bounced back. He got seizures, had battled almost something with epileptic style epilepsy or epileptic style seizures. But then he started to take CBD, and that this has really helped him with the seizures. It's helped him with the pain. He was on 7 drugs. He's now down to 2. So for medicinal purposes, even for recreational purposes, Gary says that this marijuana, weed, has not hurt him. On the contrary, it's enabled him to lead a very successful, highly functional life. Gary, have I summed up your argument or your point correctly?
Close, Jeff. I was going to get to the point where I was going to say I got through it my whole life. I used it my whole life. It didn't affect me too much. It did start to affect me when I got into my 30s. I started feeling a little bit stupider, I think, but I also started getting into some other drugs as well. But what I'm trying to say is that they need to separate the THC and the CBD. The CBD is the medical version of it. It has no THC in it. It can be made with 0 THC. So they're trying to make that legal in every state. You can buy that in Massachusetts now just like you can pot. The problem is that isn't covered by your insurance, and that costs $1,000 for the prescription, so no one that can use it can afford to buy it. So what I had to do is I had to grow my own marijuana to smoke it, and I had to buy my own CBD and make it myself. I buy it raw and I make it myself. So I can't go to the store and buy a 1 ounce bottle of CBD for $60 because I can't afford that because I need 10 bottles a month. So I make my own, and my doctor knows I make my own. My doctors approve of me making my own. My doctors are all happy that I'm all getting better, and they're all going to be very shocked when they see my next update. But the problem is the THC side. They're letting the THC side get out of control. You can go to the dispensary now, and you can buy a vape, Jeff, with 90% THC in it. Now, when you grow marijuana in your backyard, you can grow marijuana at about 10 to 20 to 25% strength. And you don't need anything more than 15 to 20% strength to smoke a few hits and get high. The problem is everybody's going too strong. They have to overdo everything. So now you can buy marijuana that's 30% THC, and you can smoke it. And you can buy a marijuana vape cartridge that you can inhale it, and you can inhale 90% THC. No one should ever inhale 90% THC. I tried it. I didn't like it. And so
Gary, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got it because Mike I got to tell you, Mike, boy, you seem very familiar with this topic there, Mike. Now, all your friends. Okay, Mike. Mike says some friends. Mike says he's got some friends. It's not you, Mike. It's your friends. You've dabbled a little bit. I figured, Mike. Anyway, Mike is reinforcing everything that you're saying, Gary. In fact, during the break, he said, no, Jeff, the THC part is what gets you really high. And he said, that's the part that's really bad. And he said, you're right. They're really loading up all these products with insane levels of THC. He goes, what Gary is talking about is the CBD. He said that's the part that really calms you, relaxes you, has some real medical value, medicinal purpose. He said that's what Gary is saying is working. And then as you were talking about that 90% THC content, he was in my ear, Mike was saying, Jeff, that'll blast you to the moon. Like just a couple of puffs. And you are high as a kite. Gary, with the way they've loaded up the THC, this is the question I have for you. What many are saying is that it's big money, it's huge money, it's potentially almost unlimited money. The banks are now wanting to get in on the action. You've got very powerful corporate interests now. They can smell, this is a fortune, bigger than cigarettes ever were, potentially. Gary, is the reason why these dispensaries, or as you put them, some of these cartridges, these marijuana cartridges, are with such high levels of THC is because, like tobacco, they want you addicted. Like tobacco, they want you hooked. So you get a much higher buzz, you're really high, and you just keep coming back. You're a repeat customer. And they don't care what the side effects are. They look at you now as a walking dollar bill. Is that why they're pushing all this THC? In other words, is it the money?
It's the money, but that's not why they're pushing the high THC level. They're pushing the high THC level just as a gimmick to get you to buy it. You can get high on any level of THC, really, and it's the money that they're after. It costs $30 to buy 3 grams in the store, Jeff. I'm growing 3 pounds in my yard right now for $300. So it's the money, and what they want to do is the selling point. They want to. It sounds neat to have it say it's 90% THC. It sounds cool to say it's 60% or 70%. It's a selling point, and it just gets the kids to try it. And if you take it at that level, you may get a little bit addicted. You don't get physically addicted. You get mentally addicted. There's no such thing as physically getting addicted to marijuana, really. You can stop smoking it anytime you want. You just mentally want it. And you're right. If you smoke it too much and you smoke it all the time, you're going to get dumb. And I did get a little bit dumb after a while. It took a long, long time, but I did stop feeling a little bit dumb in my 30s. But then I tell you, right now I feel a lot smarter than I did 3 years ago when I couldn't walk.
Oh, I hear you. No, Gary, I hear you. Look, I'm just happy you're back on your feet and you're getting back to your old self. Gary, because you know so much about this, just humor me. What's the difference, say, between, a marijuana, a marijuana cigarette or a joint or whatever with 90% THC and say 25% THC? Like, what's the, if I'm smoking it, I'm using, one is 90%, one is 25%. What's the difference?
Just get you higher with less, quicker, and maybe get you more nervous, I think. I'm not really sure because I don't really get high that much anymore because I have liver problems and I lack the gene that actually processes the THC. So I really don't even get stoned, Jeff. I can smoke it all day long. I don't even get stoned. The problem is the difference between eating it and smoking it. When you eat it, you eat it and you don't know how much you're eating, and there's a different conversion factor in your body when you eat it. It transfers into your metabolism a completely different way when you eat it compared to when you smoke it. Gary, that's what a lot of doctors are saying. Is just to back up what you're saying, they're saying because people are eating it as opposed to smoking it, they're eating too much. Like, in other words, their body can't process it. And that's leading to what they're called, the scromiting, where they come in emergency rooms and they're like, it's crazy. They're both vomiting and screaming at the same time. Like, they're super anxious, like super nervous, like, and they're just like, they're going nuts. And it's like just vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. And they're like, it's not a candy bar, dude. You don't just eat the whole thing. You're supposed to only take a little bit. You nibble on it. Gary, dynamite call, super informative. And please, Gary, keep taking care of yourself. And God bless you, my friend. Anastasia in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Anastasia, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.
And Gary was really, he was spot on a lot. I consider myself an old hippie because I am. And I have to tell you, a couple of things I want to say is that when our warriors came back from Vietnam, that's when a lot of the marijuana came in and the hashish. And, the in crowd that I was in, we get the best of the best. And nowadays, I have tried gummies. And I have a package in front of me, and it's 450 milligrams for a gummy.
And do you know what, Anastasia, do you know what the THC content is by any chance?
I'm looking at the package, and you know how you go to the grocery store and you look at a label and it lists everything? They don't list it.
Oh, really?
Unless it's the 450 milligrams of THC. It does say on the front of the package that it does have THC. And it's right. Once this gets into your system, it takes 30 days for it to clean out of your system. Because I've had blood tests done, and I am not a regular user. I mean, this is like, maybe 4 times a year, if that. And, it's incredibly strong. It's like mind-blowing strong. It's like, what the Christ? The government finally got something right. They know how to make a drug as strong as possible. And it really, I'm just utterly blown away by it. The other thing I would like
if you don't mind me, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. As a former hippie who, someone like you who, maybe, probably did marijuana in the late 60s, early 70s. What I've been reading and what people are saying, and you tell me if this is accurate or not, that, as we would say, your parents' pot, i.e. your generation, that the THC content, when you were, say, smoking up, doing a joint, say, in 1970, that was 2 to 3%. Very low THC. I mean, yeah, eventually you get high, but it's not that high of a high to begin with. And, you know, you got to smoke the damn thing to get the high. In other words, it was much more mild. But they're saying that now it's 15 to 25%, in some cases even 80, 90%. And they're saying it is so powerful, it is so potent, when you compare it to what people used to smoke 40, 50 years ago, it's like a different drug. It may be called the same thing, but it's like a different drug. Anastasia, when you compare it to the marijuana that you were smoking or whatever, inhaling, whatever, the marijuana that you took, say, 50 years ago, how does the marijuana that you took 50 years ago compare to the stuff you have now, the gummies right in front of you?
The gummies, Jeff, I just gotta bring this up, is that I never liked smoking pot because, you know why? Because I felt that it made me stupid. It was like, no, I don't feel like getting stupid right now, okay? And that was way back then, 50 years ago. And I just said to my husband, do you remember a license plate? People used to buy this license plate out of the pot shops, and it used to say, arrived stoned, and they'd put it on their front bumper upside down. And it was like, okay. But that's exactly how it affected me. I always felt that it made me stupid. And what the government puts out now is just unbelievable. It's terrifying, actually. To be honest with you, it's terrifying. It's so strong. It's so potent. And the gummies, I got sick when they first came out. I got sick because I popped a whole one and, wow, this is cool. I don't smoke pot anymore. And like I say, I will do a gummy, a quarter of one, on a celebration, somebody's birthday, that kind of thing. But it is so strong that I won't even take a whole one. I won't take a whole one, and it stays in your system for 30 days, and it does last up to a couple of hours. And the other thing I wanted to just bring up quickly is, I don't know if you noticed, but on our voting, when we voted for President Trump, on the instructions, you go to City Hall, or they sent out instructions on voting and what you were voting for. One of the things that they had was whether we wanted to approve the use of hallucinogenics. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now, where are we going with that? Really? Where is our society going with a question like that? It's like, oh my God, what planet am I on? And I have to say, brightest of blessings to you, your family, and all the listeners out there, because I've learned so much. You're a friend of mine. You keep me informed so I can help be a patriot, a better patriot, because I love my country. I love President Trump. I love us all because we want to do the right thing. We want values and traditions and a happy America again.
And
Thank
Anastasia,
you so much, Jeff.
I love you in a non-sexual way. And I want to thank you for your honesty and for your call. And please, Anastasia, don't be a stranger, okay? I want you to call again. 617-266-6868 is the number. So there you have it. From a former hippie. Yeah, the pot that we did 50 years ago. Yeah, you got a buzz. You got a little bit of a high. It's not today's marijuana. Today's marijuana, as she put it, is a lot more potent and a lot more powerful. And I think I hope people get that message to President Trump, because, the only thing I would slightly disagree, and I know it's regulated by the state and the government. That's why Anastasia said the government is doing a good job with this. This is not, it may be government regulated and the government is taxing it. She's right. But no, this is private industry. This is private sector all the way, baby. This is now corporate. This is big business. This is big pot. This is big money. And they know what they're doing. They want you to get a massive high, and they want to make it as addictive as possible. And the consequences be damned. 617-266-6868. Steve in Kentucky. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Steve.
And I love you with all my heart, but you're wrong in a lot of this. Primarily because being stupid makes you stupid, number one.
Steve, I'm sorry, I can barely hear you. We don't have a very good connection. Are you in a bad zone by any chance?
Probably not.
Okay. Can you just start? So you love me? I think I heard that, but I'm wrong on this, which is fine. We can agree to disagree. But then I lost you. So please, Steve, just tell me. So why am I wrong? I take it. Do you use marijuana, Steve? If you don't mind me asking.
Lately, I had to quit in 2020. Now, the edibles and the oils, I know nothing about. I can't speak for that. But as far as the plant goes,
okay,
I've been doing it since 1979, and there is no difference in the amount of THC that's in there. I mean, you can crossbreed, you can make different tastes, different looks, but as far as making it more potent, you can't do that. Saying you can make oranges more.
Steve, sorry again. You're breaking up on us. But you said you grow pot, so I take it you grow your own pot, correct, Steve?
No,
you don't grow your own pot.
Have it. No, I would kill a plastic plant. I'm not a gardener.
So where do you buy your pot? Do you buy it at a dispensary?
No, I can't smoke anymore. I quit smoking in 2020. But I had a question for you.
Sorry, Steve. Sorry, again, if you don't want me asking, why can't you smoke pot?
Because I was one of the dumb ones that decided that I wanted to smoke cigarettes.
You broke up on me. Did I hear you correctly that you wanted to smoke pot? Sorry, you smoke pot and cigarettes? Is that it?
I did, yes.
Oh, and in your lungs. It probably damaged your lungs, correct?
Oh, yeah. But I don't know. I can't speak as far as the weed.
No, but you're saying the cigarette, the heavy cigarette use, the tobacco use damaged your lungs, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Emphysema, COPD.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, that's my fault. I did it. Nobody else did it. But I've always wanted to ask you a question, Jack.
Yes.
Do you know why cannabis is illegal?
Do I know why cannabis is illegal?
Yes.
I would guess.
Do you know why cannabis?
Because it's a drug?
No. This was made illegal. This is the biggest propaganda that our government did up to recently. It was motivated by Andrew Mellon, which is the owner of Gulf Oil, which I believe he's the one that had
Steve, I'm sorry. Steve, please don't think we're censoring you. It's not that at all. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but we're missing every second word. But look, I'll look into it. You've already given me enough information. It was Andrew Mellon, who I know very well. He's an historical figure, a big tycoon, and he had some kind of an involvement regarding oil. So I'll follow that. And I want to get I just assumed it's, a narcotic. It's a drug. That gets you high. It's an hallucinogen. And, that people thought it was bad for your brain, bad for your body, bad for your health. And so, like other drugs, that's why it's considered a banned substance. But I will definitely get to the bottom of the origins of why cannabis was made illegal. Stephen, and I'm very sorry about your health. Please take care of yourself. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. Should marijuana be reclassified as a much less addictive and dangerous drug? Trump is now seriously considering doing that. Mike is telling me that he's tried it a few times when he was in college. He said the first time it was a real relaxant. That, in fact, it was a good experience, according to Mike. It just zones you out, almost put him to sleep, very relaxed. And, he liked it. It was a very nice experience. He said he hasn't hasn't done it in many years because the last time he did it in college, he had basically a bad experience. It made him very anxious, made him very antsy, made him very nervous, made him almost semi-paranoid. I said, what do you mean, Mike? You thought there were UFOs or aliens, in space saucers over the house? He goes, not quite that bad, but I just got very jumpy. I said, oh, you thought the Russians were invading or something? He goes, no, it's not they didn't lace it with a hallucinogenic, Jeff. He's starting to make fun of me now. But basically saying, no, you're right. For some people, it makes them very anxious, very nervous. I really didn't like it. And basically, he says he's high on life. Doesn't need drugs. He's now high on life. On weekends, he'll have the occasional beer. But that he tried marijuana, and it's just not his thing. 617-266. Mike, did I sum up your position accurately? He would say, I would say so. 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Jeff, when you started talking about this topic this morning and just laid out the facts of where this big marijuana business is going, my first thought was, oh my God, this is big tobacco all over again. And the thing is, with big tobacco, that was well beyond the frontier days when the farmer would come in after a day in the field and enjoy his pipe at the fireplace and all that sort of thing. And we know the whole thing of how big tobacco did all kinds of manipulation to the tobacco products to make them more addictive so people would use more of it and they would make more money. And sure enough, the same thing is playing out with big marijuana. And just a few things, Jeff. Number one, these liberal trial lawyers, and many of them have been behind this push to legalize marijuana. These same trial lawyers that sued the big tobacco companies and made all kinds of money, I'm just wondering if 10, 20 years from now, this same crowd's going to be right back suing big marijuana for all the health effects that are eventually going to result from all of this. That is point number one. Point number two, the American capitalists really need to be taken to the woodshed, Jeff. This push for the almighty buck and pursuing that at the expense of no consideration of morality, no consideration of the well-being of country. Let me take them for a little walk down memory lane, Jeff. Way back in Vladimir Lenin's time, he actually spoke of the capitalist. Vladimir Lenin said, quote, the capitalists would provide us with the rope by which we would use to hang them. And
Andy, sorry, by the way, you're absolutely brilliant call. Okay, the quote is slightly off, but it's to reinforce your point. He didn't say provide us with the rope. He said they will sell us the rope. In other words, to your point, that and he's talking about the American capitalist. He said that the American capitalist, just to make a buck, will sell us the rope that we will then use to hang them. In other words, they don't even have self-interest. They just money, money, money. even if it means killing themselves in the end. Andy, please keep going because you're on a roll.
Okay, so we've, like our open borders, I mean, the biggest headache President Trump has had with that is the American business interests because they're addicted to cheap labor. In our foreign policy, same thing. Biggest obstacle, doing what we really need to do to put the CCP in their place because they want that cheap labor over in China. And now, here we go again, money to push to make marijuana fully legal. And let us not forget, we just are coming out of the opioid crisis. And it, I mean, a lot of people got addicted to like prescription opioids. And also, Jeff, I do believe Karl Marx in his time said something about getting a generation enslaved in drugs and immorality in order to bring down society.
Bingo. You're completely, and that's Soros. Soros got that from Karl Marx. And literally, that's why Soros, he is the godfather of the movement to legalize weed and marijuana. Not medicinal. I'm talking recreational marijuana. I'm talking, you can buy it at any dispensary. And by the way, he's a billionaire as well. And you're dead on, Andy. It is capitalism without a conscience. Capitalists without a conscience. That's now what we're seeing in America, whether it be on open borders, whether it be on dealing with China, and now especially on this legalizing weed. And they're lying about the devastating side effects. They're lying about the cost to our society. And look, they've got a very powerful lobby. They have bought up a lot of politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, to be honest. And they've got tremendous power now in the media. Okay, I want to ask all of you, Kuhner Country. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do you use or have you ever tried marijuana? I just want to get a sense in the audience. How many of you, when you were younger, maybe to this day, but do you use marijuana or have you ever tried or used marijuana? A, yes. B, no. You can, and I have to confess, I'm a no on this. In fact, to show you how boring I am, I don't drink alcohol. I've never used drugs. I've never even tried marijuana. I don't even drink coffee. I tried smoking a cigarette once, couldn't stand it. 2 puffs, and I was like, so I don't smoke. I don't do drugs ever. I don't drink. I don't even drink coffee. I've got one vice, baby. And I'm holding it right now. Hold on. That's a Coke Zero. I swear to God, one of the greatest inventions ever. Whoever invented Coke Zero, you're a genius. And even this now, with my diabetes, they got me down to 1 small bottle a day. That's it. I sip this slow, the whole day, slow. Otherwise, all I do is drink water. I'm telling you, I'm a really boring guy. So anyway, just so that you know, I've never done anything. Believe me, I'm not Mr. Excitement. I'll tell you this, but I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, N is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And again, last night, boy, was I active on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. N is in national ER. KUHNER. Have you ever used or do you use marijuana? Have you ever tried it? A, yes. B, no. If I could vote, I would vote a no. Mike would be a yes. I want to hear from you. And let me ask all of you, if you did use it in the past and you still have, tried it again now, or you still use it now, are you in agreement with what seems to be now, A, what the science is saying, what the research is saying, and anecdotally now what many people who are calling in are saying, that the pot that maybe people used, say, 40, 50 years ago is very different now from what they're selling at these pot shops and these dispensaries. That there is so much more THC, which is, by the way, different from the CBD. CBD is actually helps people medicinally, especially those with PTSD or seizure issues. A lot of troops, a lot of veterans who suffer from PTSD say that the CBD, the cannabis oil, has helped them tremendously. But the stuff that really gets you high and has some real addictive qualities or traits to them is the THC. And they are now spiking the THC content. Again, not to beat a dead horse. 40, 50 years ago, maybe 2-3% THC, say, in a joint. Okay, and whatever, somebody smoking weed. Now it's minimum 15 to 25%, much higher. But in many cases, it's 60, 70, even 90, even 95%. It is strong, powerful, and very addictive. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Is the pot of 40, 50 years ago radically different from the pot that they're selling today? Antoinette on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Antoinette, and welcome.
Oh, good morning, Jeff. Nice to talk to you again. It's been a while, and all of a sudden I'm nervous, so nice to talk to you about this. So I want to emphasize what some number of callers are saying, the difference. If people are resident travel listening, it's like to really hone the emphasis on the medicinal versus the non-medicinal. The CBD has medicinal qualities that are very beneficial. People with Parkinson's and all kinds of neurological issues and motor skills, and that should be only available by prescription because there is a benefit to that. But honing in on that class 1, the THC, the psychogenic part, that cannot be moved out of a class 1 category. And one of the things I want to emphasize is that what the crossover drug is to heroin.
Is it marijuana?
It is.
Really? So you're saying, Antoinette, it really is a gateway drug?
And because, I'm an eye doctor, I'm an optometrist, so that pathway of marijuana, the THC, is the same pathway with the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we see patients on marijuana, their pupils constrict. So it's that same pathway that is shared with the marijuana, with the THC. So that's why it is a gateway drug. It is a crossover drug. So it should remain in that class 1 category. So that, if we can hammer that home, that's the distinction between the two. And so I'm a big no on reclassifying the non-medicinal, marijuana. And plus the fact, I see kids that can't read, adults that come in, they wonder why they can't read what's going on, and it's because their pupils are constricted. They can't focus. They can't focus. Your pupils need to open and close properly when you're reading and looking away and things of that nature. So you're seeing difficulties in reading skills and school performances on kids, never mind just all the damage that it does to the brain cells. So that's...
Antoinette, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to ask you. And when you ask them, you're saying it's directly because of the heavy pot use, correct?
Absolutely, because I've had very cheapest adult patients come in, and I've questioned them, and then they admit that they smoke pot pretty heavily every evening, and they can't read the evening newspaper, or they can't go on the computer, and they're wondering if it's their glasses or something's wrong with their vision. And it's the marijuana.
Interesting. Antoinette, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. I promise I won't be offended. Have you ever used marijuana? Have you ever tried marijuana?
No. And I am a very exciting, vivacious woman that you want to have at a party, sociable. So I think I have never, I don't drink, I don't smoke, never touched it. My friends
Wow, you
never
sound like
touched
me.
it. Never had an inclination. I want to feel what I feel and deal with my feelings. And I think that's how we need to raise our children. Strong and not turning towards a substance that's going to turn away from how you're dealing with whatever issues you have or the feelings that you have. Let's feel the feelings, and that strengthens us as we move forward. So that's another message I want to say. You're not boring. You are not a boring man because you don't do any drugs or drink or what have you. I think we have to change that vernacular too and say, I am I'm exciting, I'm vivacious, I'm a great friend, I'm a person you want to be around, and I don't do any drugs and I don't drink, and be proud of it.
Antoinette, thank you very much for that call. Excellent call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. I want you to listen now to President Trump. He is now under tremendous growing pressure to reclassify cannabis, pot, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, from a class 1 drug alongside, in other words, which is currently what it is. It's currently classified as a class 1 or section 1 drug, along with LSD, heroin, meaning if it's class 1 or section 1, meaning that it has no, quote, medical or medicinal purpose whatsoever, as well as being highly, highly addictive. To a class 3 or section 3 drug, in other words, reclassify it as a much less dangerous drug. Section 3 or class 3, it's ketamine, testosterone, steroids. These are considered class 3 drugs. In other words, they have medical purposes to them, and they're much, much less addictive. In fact, some of them aren't even addictive at all. So, in other words, and the reason why he's being pressured to do this is because now there is the rise of big marijuana or big pot. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but powerful corporate interests now say this will be even bigger than tobacco, maybe even bigger than big pharma. They believe there is now almost an unlimited market in the United States for the legalization of weed. Pot is legalized in about 25 states. Almost 20 states now have legalized marijuana for medicinal or medical purposes. They want it legal in all 50 states. And this has been one of the brainchilds of George Soros. This has been one of his huge causes going back 20, 25, 30 years. He has poured hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, he and his allies, behind political initiatives, marketing campaigns to mainstream pot and to mainstream in particular the notion of legalizing recreational marijuana. So there's a lot of opposition now growing to this. Trump is under pressure from both sides. Listen to him saying, I will make a decision along with HHS Secretary RFK Jr. Both of us are going to work together on it. And you will know very soon whether I will reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug at the federal level. Roll cut 23, Mike.
There's reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early. But, somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things.
Now, I want to make two quick points, And then I want to go back to the phone lines. And by the way, the calls today have been superb. This is from 703. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470. 70470. Jeff, remember how the quote-unquote legalization of marijuana was marketed by George Soros and his gang? In the beginning, it was never marketed for this kind of widespread use. But that was the ultimate intent. Make no mistake about it. The camel's nose in the tent marketed quote-unquote legalization only for a very narrow group. Those with chronic and intractable pain and terminally ill patients, people whose chemotherapy left them nauseated and unable to eat, and of course, veterans with PTSD. In other words, the campaign targeted our sympathy for the suffering. That is very true. But there's no denying that fact. Wherever you stand on the issue, and reasonable people can disagree, obviously, but wherever you stand on the issue, there's no question that Soros deliberately promoted and pushed this campaign. I remember the late 1990s, the early 2000s, when this movement really got going. It was for a narrow class of people, for veterans with PTSD, and many of them do say it does help them, people with chemotherapy, people who suffer from chronic pain, people who are at the end of their life, God forbid, that this would help them. They always, initially they said, no, we'll never legalize it for general population. We'll never legalize recreational marijuana. Absolutely not. But of course, that was their intent all along. It really was the camel under the camel's nose under the tent. It was a Trojan horse. And now they believe they can get recreational marijuana legalized in all 50 states within a decade. 617-266-6868. Now, very quickly, because some people that I really respect have made some excellent points. One of them is Manny Ribeiro. Marine, a veteran, but, once a Marine, always a Marine, said, Jeff, please tread lightly on this issue. There is a big difference between THC and cannabis oil, CBD. He's right. Just because people use marijuana, especially veterans who suffer from PTSD, doesn't make them a quote-unquote pothead or a lazy person or whatever. That is also true. And I thought he made another excellent argument, which is some people just have an addictive personality. They just have an addictive personality. So, they won't smoke 5 cigarettes a day. They'll smoke 2 to 3 packs a day. They won't just have 1 glass of wine at dinner. They're alcoholics. They can't stop. The same for people who use marijuana. Some people will use it only for medical purposes or maybe recreationally, but I don't know, once a week, on the weekend, or once every 2 weeks or whatever. And then you have others, again, the addictive personality, they can't stop. Every day, all day, they can't stop. And those are the so-called potheads. And furthermore, and he's right. There's no question that, people do have it. Look, I'll be brutally honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. If you're going to probe me and say, Jeff, come on, really, why? Why don't you touch a drop of alcohol? Why don't you smoke? Why have you never even tried any drugs whatsoever? Because I have an addictive personality. I just do. I know my body. I know how I am. And, for example, I love chocolates. M&M's, my favorite. I just can't have a small bag. I'll go buy the big, not now with my diabetes, I don't do that. But in the glory days, the pre-diabetes days, I get one of those big baggers and say I'm working at the office or whatever I'm doing. And I would just, one after another, one after another, one after another. And eventually I go through the whole damn bag. Like, I don't stop. Now, I would, after a while, maybe go through half the bag and then give it to Grace and say, please hide it from me because I'm going to finish the whole damn thing. So part of me says to myself, look, Grace is she's a social drinker. She can have a glass of wine here or there. She's fine. My fear is I start drinking, I won't stop. I start doing drugs, I won't stop. I could give you whatever. I start smoking, I won't stop. So I have an addictive personality. And now I'm into buying books. I mean, I do a lot of reading. I do read a lot. But I buy a hell of a lot more than what I read. I buy secondhand books. It's almost like a compulsion. I buy about 2, 3, 4 books a week. I mean, I read about a book a week, so I am reading. But I just, I'm like, ooh, I need this. Ooh, I want this. Ooh, I plan to read this. Now, they're secondhand books, so I pay $4 or $5 a book. It's not the end of the world. But I have that kind of, compulsive personality. That's just the way I am. So, that's why I say, don't start with this. Don't start with this. Don't even go there, because I know how I'm hardwired. So there's also that. I think there's no question. And then a final point, and I think Manny is 1,000% dead on. Some people, for whatever reason, react to drugs, substances, whatever you want to call them, differently than others. They just do. And I'll just give you an example. Both my grandfathers, on my mother's side and my father's side, smoked 2 packs a day. They drank like fish. They're from, Eastern Europe. I mean, vodka in the morning, vodka in the afternoon, vodka in the evening. They drank wine like it was water. They all lived until their 80s. Now, they were farmers, they were peasants, they worked extremely hard, they ate organic food, they were out in the sunshine. I mean, they exercised by virtue of their hard work. But here, I'll give you another example. And if Grace is listening, she's going to be smiling ear to ear. Neil Cameron. You're going to say, Jeff, who the hell is Neil Cameron? He was one of my former professors. He passed away about 7, 8 years ago. Also a well-known journalist in Montreal. Of Scottish descent. And I would kill to have Scottish genes. Because I can't tell you how many people I know of Scottish descent where I've seen the exact same story. This guy was 350 to 400 pounds. He ate junk food all the time. Okay, he was a big man. He never ate a vegetable his entire life. I mean, he said this to me. He goes, I've never eaten a vegetable. I'm like, what? Like, what? How the hell did you... If I don't eat vegetables in 3 days, my body starts to break down. Like, seriously, if I don't have a salad within 2 or 3 days, like I'm going through some kind of like a nutrient withdrawal, like Jeff, like my body's like, you're going to break down, Jeff. Come on, get the lettuce, get the cucumbers, get the tomatoes. Let's go. Get some good stuff in you. He smoked 2 packs a day, every day for 50, 60 years. The guy would belt back 12 to 15 glasses of scotch a day. You say, Jeff, he's probably an alcoholic. Well, he was a brilliant man, and frankly, I guess he was a functional alcoholic, because the guy was a brilliant professor, a brilliant journalist. You couldn't tell when you spoke to him that the guy was drunk. The guy lived to 82 years old. I remember, I'll never forget this. This was 25 years ago. We were at one of his favorite bar hangouts. Grace and I were, other journalists. Neil was there, obviously. And he had gone through now at least 10 scotches. Okay? He's smoking the way he always did. Lights one, then another, then another, then another. And I looked at him and I said, Neil, I got to tell you, man, I would kill to have your constitution. And everybody started laughing, like they're nodding their head up and down, like, yeah. I go, no. I go, Neil, honestly, the way you eat, the way you smoke, the way you drink, if I lived the way you lived, there's no way I'm making it till 40 years old. 45, maybe. By 40 years old, I'm dead. Either my liver gives out, I've got lung, throat cancer, I mean, what? I pick your pick. I'm dead. Do you understand that? I'm dead. Or a massive heart attack. Like just boom. This guy, he just kept on rolling until 82. And at his funeral, you know what everybody said? If he just took better care of himself, he could have lived to 100 easy. With his genes, easy. I'll tell you, like the British royal family, like Queen Elizabeth, like the Queen Mother, all of them. If it's not 100, it's damn close. So some people, they're just blessed with, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like Sydney Sweeney here. Okay? But some people are just blessed with good genes. And I don't just mean the kind of, appearance-wise. Some people have the health gene and they do stuff to their body. Hey, look at the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. Again, they're from England, Scotland, that whole area, Wales, Ireland, that whole area. I don't know what it is about that corner of the world, but they can do stuff to their body, and they just keep on ticking. Ozzy Osbourne, another one, the stuff that this guy did to his body. So, I mean, I don't know if you heard about Keith Richards. He's like way in his 70s now. I forget if it's the boozing, the drugs, or the smoking. He's another one. 2-3 packs a day, always drunk, always stoned. He quit one of the three, Mike. Like his doctor said, no, just, you can't do this anymore. So I forget if it's the drinking, the smoking. He's still doing 2 out of 3. But one of the 3 he had to cut. But I would kill to have the genes of... I remember watching him on TV at a concert. This was in the early 1980s. I looked at him. I said, this is death walking. I go, I don't give this guy more than 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years. That was in 1981. This guy's going to outlive me. 617-266-6868. And by the way, if I bit off the heads of bats the way Ozzy Osbourne did again and again at every single one of his concerts, I would have died of some bacteria or infection a long time ago. No, this guy urinated blood and just kept on ticking. I'm telling you, some people are blessed with good genes. That's it. Jack in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Jeffrey, how are you, sir? I love the show.
Thank you, Jack.
I may have to roll over in my future grave because for the first time I agree with George Soros, and I think Antoinette's side was just nuts. I am a highly functional 60-year-old medical sales guy, not daily pot user, but quite frequent. I read 1 to 2 books a week. I function perfectly in my job. I don't drink. I'll have a little bit of a puff at night, and I actually have a condition called macular degeneration in my eyes. And my doctor at Mass General said, well, stop smoking it. Get it in an edible form. It's actually very good for your eyes. So where Antoinette was coming from, I don't know. And, I get angry just like I would at a liberal who's telling me I'm wrong on my positions. It's an opinion. Am I better off doing a couple pops or a brownie rather than sitting there and drinking 5 gallons of tequila every week? When I heard her, I'm like, it's the first time I've ever called you, and I'm like, you know what? The woman may be smart, but she's dumb on this subject.
Jack, I take it you're still using it to this day, correct?
Absolutely, 66 years old.
Jack, have you noticed any difference in the THC content? That apparently they say it's gotten much more powerful and potent. Have you noticed that? I'm just curious.
You used to have to, get it from a local friend who grew it or, who imported it, whatever. You got to be really careful at the stores now. And I do worry about the young kids because, once they're 18 and they can buy it, some of the stuff is really, really strong. And you just got to be really careful and know what you're doing in terms of, THC quantity when you buy it. But to say that it's a gateway to heroin or that I can't, I've never touched anything other than that. And to say that you can't read because you smoke, like I said, like you, I love to read. I'm reading 1 or 2 books. I got 1 or 2 books going at all times. So, some of the stuff she said is just bunk.
Jack, if you don't mind me asking, do you drink alcohol?
No. I did a little bit when I was young. Well, I shouldn't say no. If we go out for Mexican food, my wife and I'll have 1 margarita.
Yeah, you'll have a tequila or a margarita. No, I hear you. You're like my wife. No, I hear you. Jack, what do you consider worse, if you don't mind me asking? Pot/marijuana, however you want to call it, or alcohol?
Oh, alcohol. I've seen so many of my friends, including my own dad back in the day, World War II vet. I've seen alcohol almost destroy his life. Am I addicted to it? No, because if I travel for a couple of weeks in my job or I'm going abroad for a vacation, I don't bring it with me. I'm not stupid enough to bring it on a plane. Am I going through withdrawal symptoms? No, it doesn't bother me at all. I can pick it up and stop anytime I want.
Jack, it's really funny you should say that, because my dad, now he never did, pot or weed. He was a boozer. My dad liked to drink. And again, coming from the old country, Central Eastern Europe, like his father, my grandfather, he'd have a shot in the morning, like the hard stuff. He would have a couple of glasses of wine every night. And he would say to me exactly what you just said, because he used to travel for his company. And so he'd often go to the Middle East, right? But even abroad, it doesn't matter. No matter where he went, he never drank. Just when he was on business, flying to another country, he never drank. But he often had to go to the Middle East where alcohol is banned. And he said exactly what you just said. I said, because I'd say, Dad, I tease him. I go, aren't you worried? Like you're going to get, like you're becoming an alcoholic, with all the wine and all the booze you're drinking. And he said, no, I travel for my company. When I travel, I don't drink. I never drink. I'll go weeks sometimes, because he was away for long periods of time. He goes, sometimes I'm away for 2, 3, even 4 weeks, 6 weeks even. I don't touch a drink. I never have a symptom of withdrawal. I do my job perfectly. Then I come back and I resume drinking. So you remind me of my dad, Jack. Anyway, Jack, final word to you. Do you think it should be legalized in every state in the union? I'm just curious.
Yes. And again, I'm going to have to go to confession after this, because for once I agree with George Soros.
Jack, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's put it on the table. I've asked you already, and please keep calling. Do you use marijuana? Have you ever tried marijuana? What do you think? What's your experience been like? And the big question, should marijuana, not just for medicinal purposes, for recreational use, should marijuana be legalized in every state in the union? 617-266-6868 is the number. Don't touch that dial. 617-266-6868 is the number. So according to Marianne in Florida, and of course I have no reason to doubt her, she said, Jeff, actually Keith Richards is 81. I go, you gotta be kidding me. So off air, I messaged her back. I said, I swear to you, I'm telling you now what I've told Grace, my family, friends in private. In private, I'll say, I am convinced. I'm telling you, I'm convinced. Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, the whole Rolling Stones, they made a pact with the devil. Like, they're just telling, like, no. The devil says you're going to have fame, you're going to have sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, you're going to do inhuman stuff to your body, and I'm going to let you live to like 100 years old. But then your soul is mine. It's all mine. Because I look at them. I mean, the abuse that they've inflicted on their body, the stuff that they've done, they just keep on rolling, baby. I mean, I'm like, that's got to be a pact with the devil. I mean, I would kill to have their genes, their health. In terms of their, that kind of a constitution. Holy mackerel. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lynn in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lynn, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Lynn?
Good, good. Thank you for taking my call. So I do drug testing. This is my job. I have a company in New Hampshire, and it's all through Department of Transportation, DOT. So this is all the phone callers this morning have great points, but when we talk federally, we're talking about the Department of Transportation. We're talking about the truckers, the airlines, the bus drivers, people that work on the pipeline and gas, railroad. So the history of drug testing, real quick, goes back to the late 80s with President Reagan. There was a very bad Amtrak accident in Baltimore, and you can look that up. About 650 people, they didn't all die, but some died and some were badly injured. The conductor and the engineer were taking marijuana and PCP. So President Reagan said there were so many accidents back then that he says they put together the DOT drug and alcohol program. And what that means is anyone that works for the Department of Transportation, like I said, truckers, airlines, railroad, transit, like in Boston, the Red and Green Line, the pipeline, and Coast Guard are part of this program. And what we have to do is we test. So we do a 5-panel test. And part of in that test is your marijuana and PCP. So I really think that's how PCP originally got into the DOT 5-panel. So basically, we have to test everyone in the different programs in the different departments of DOT. They have to have a pre-employment drug test to show they're negative. They go into a pool or a consortium, and they're drug tested on a quarterly basis. And that's how I run my business. I'm very specially trained. Sam, all these drug tests that we do right now, we only do urine. Oral will be coming soon. DOT is very strict. Laboratories have to be sanction approved. HHS is the big ahead of DOT. What HHS does, DOT most likely may follow. So we discussed this yesterday in our town hall. I'm a member of a group called NDASA. It stands for National Drug and Alcohol Screening Associates. We are actually going to I have an email to get a hold of President Trump and his people. We're all going to correspond to him to tell him the dangers of THC with just transportation and safety for everybody. Now,
Lynn, let me ask you this, because I hear you loud and clear. Look, do I want airline pilots stoned? No. Do I want truckers smoking marijuana on a regular basis and getting stoned, getting high as a kite with all that THC now they're loading up in these products? Absolutely not. I'm just curious, what do you say to the argument? Because I can already see it. It's already coming on my on the text line that, okay, Lynn, you don't like pilots using marijuana because of the THC, the high level now of THC, or, truck drivers. But what about if they drink? Now, I'm not saying obviously you don't want the guy drunk or you don't want the guy loaded up on, 6 glasses of wine. But say they have a glass of wine with dinner and then go fly a plane. Or they have, say, a bottle of beer before they, with lunch or with dinner, and then they drive a truck. Do you have as much opposition to alcohol as you do to marijuana? I'm just curious. What's your position?
Well, here's the thing with alcohol. It's water soluble. So you can have a beer at dinner, and we test for alcohol. We test FMCSA tests 50% a year in your pool of drug testing and 10% for alcohol. And we do get positive alcohol. So we are picking up people in the morning drinking that cannot pass a breath alcohol test.
Yeesh.
Now, here's the problem with marijuana. One of the issues, it's fat soluble. So So that's why when the woman said 30 days, if you don't smoke marijuana on a regular basis, and let's say you go up camping for the summer and you have a joint, okay, if you don't do it normally, we'll still pick it up in your urine for 2 weeks. It's the metabolites of THC. Delta 9 is what we test. That is the psychopath. You do not want truck drivers. Right now, just to give you a statistic, the DOT set up what was called the clearinghouse. And basically that is a database where
Lynn, can you do me a favor? I don't want to rush this. Please hang on. I'm up against a hard break. Okay, let me ask you. Trump now under a lot of pressure to reclassify cannabis, marijuana, pot, however you want to call it, as not a class 1 drug, which is up there with heroin, cocaine, LSD, but as a class 3 drug, a much less dangerous drug, with like ketamine or steroids or testosterone or whatever. There's other categories, but other drugs as well. But basically, as a much more mild, less addictive, much less dangerous drug. He says he'll make a decision in the next couple of weeks. There is now a big push to legalize marijuana in every single state in the union. Agree, disagree. Let's go right back to Lynn in New Hampshire. She works for the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. She says, look, at the federal level, it's very important. We're talking about, airline pilots, the regulation of airline pilots, truck drivers that drive across state lines, etc. You don't want these people stoned on THC, high marijuana loaded with THC. And I was asking her about comparing that now with alcohol, and she said they also test for alcohol. Lynn, please pick up where you left off. You think ultimately marijuana is more lethal and potent than alcohol, correct, Lynn?
I didn't say that because people drink. So right now, though, some statistics, even with DUIs, driving, marijuana has just increased over alcohol for the amount of accidents. In the percent of things that are causing accidents that used to be alcohol, marijuana has just crept over that. It's
now, Lynn, this is important because when I did my opening monologue, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you touched on a very key point, that there's all these studies now from these universities, the CDC, in Britain and elsewhere, that accidents, marijuana only DUI. In other words, it's not marijuana mixed with booze or mixed with something else. It's just people, because again, the marijuana is so potent with this THC that people are like, they're blasting off. They are super high. That the high is very powerful. That they're seeing now a skyrocketing number of cases of people crashing cars, vehicles, because they're stoned on this potent marijuana. When you say it's past alcohol, are you saying it's marijuana only DUI, or is it marijuana mixed with alcohol?
I'm not 100% sure to say totally marijuana, but the University of Sydney did a study for workplace safety, and even just a regular level, not a high level of THC taking, that the cognitive response of workers, it lasts for 3 to 4 hours. If it's a higher amount of THC in your system, it can go up to 7 hours. For being, now you're high at the very beginning, but it still continues in your system. That's why companies do the test reasonable suspicion, because they see people. I give trainings on that. If you supervisors, we train supervisors. Again, that's part of DOT, that the supervisors have to be trained to recognize that their workers are acting unusual. And what are they on, or what are they using? And it could be THC, and it could be alcohol or other things. But I just wanted to skip back real quick to the clearinghouse real quick. This is a database where we all in DOT report our violations of alcohol and positive drug testing. And it started, I can't believe the date, Jeff. It's January 6, 2020. The clearinghouse opened up. And we know what that date is for something else. Anyways, in the past, just between now and last year, 2024, there were 177,000 violations that were not from truckers that they haven't gone. They have how do I say this? Okay, 177,000 truckers that had violations. And what this database does is it stops them from getting another job. Before this database, the truckers would, and I'm not blaming truckers. There's so many good ones. So please, I'm not, it's just certain people. I don't mean it, I'm not putting fingers on anybody, but they would sweep positive drug results under the rug. And when they go to get a new job, oh no, everything's good. And DOT, we have to look back so many years at previous drug testing and see if they had violations. Well, the clearinghouse is picking this all up now. The two top drugs in the clearinghouse are marijuana and cocaine. So that's what the truckers are doing.
Wow. So you're saying marijuana and cocaine above alcohol?
Oh, yeah. Well, alcohol's still high up there, but marijuana is so the percentage is so high because it's illegal. It's legal in so many states.
I understand. Wow. Lynn, I got to tell you, it's been a real education. A real education. Lynn, thank you again, best audience in the business. Lynn, thank you so much for that call. Again, I was just going back, this is what the CDC is. I'm just going by what they're reporting. The CDC and all these other studies. 3 in 10 Americans now say they are addicted to marijuana. These are staggering numbers. By the way, there's studies internationally. So it's not just an American thing. Latin America, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, they say now that the rates of marijuana use have exploded. The only exception is Africa. I don't know what's going on in Africa. Rates in Africa in terms of using marijuana have been stable. But everywhere else, they say the use of marijuana has exploded. And they say what the big change, they say the only thing we can account for is, again, it's not your parents' pot. That we're talking THC content of 15, 20, 25, often 70, 80, 90, 95%. So it's becoming much more addictive. People try it, they use it, they stay on it, and it's a very powerful high. And they're also saying they're seeing clear mental health problems because of it, rises in suicide, or at least thoughts of suicide, depression, anxiety. It's in fact now exacerbating PTSD, not helping anymore with PTSD. Problems with lung cancer, cardiovascular issues, very similar to tobacco. So, and especially young adults. The key one is 18 to 30. They say if trends continue the way they are in about 10 to 15 years, a majority, not just in America, in Europe, Latin America, Asia, they will be marijuana users. That's why, if you want to understand, it's not just the American market. They look at the world, these powerful corporate interests, and say, this will make big pharma and big tobacco look like a family dentistry or a family doctor practice. There is so much money now potentially in marijuana, in big pot, big marijuana. Michael in Florida. Thanks for holding, Michael, and welcome.
Hey there, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi.
I felt compelled to call you this morning based on the issue.
Go ahead.
I'm originally from New Hampshire. I got educated up in New England and retired down here in Florida, where I got a medical marijuana card, and really based on just asking for a local doctor here. But I experimented with marijuana my whole life, basically from boarding school on, thanks to the Grateful Dead. And, it became common sense once I graduated and got a job and went on to grad school. It's common sense, just like you don't have 2 shots of vodka in the morning before you go to work. You have to go to work. And it's 6:30, 7:30.
Michael, can you please hang on? because God forbid, Mike in the booth should, give you an extra 30 seconds. Okay, let's go right back to Michael in Florida. He's essentially a New Hampshire transplant, born and raised in New Hampshire. He's now retired in Florida. Michael, you were saying that you've used marijuana off and on throughout your life. Please pick up where you left off.
Well, the point, like what they should be teaching I was fortunate to get a great education in boarding school and college and graduate school, blah, blah, blah. And what I learned as soon as I graduated and had to pay my own bills and work for the man, was there's a time and a place to do it. If I get home at 7:30 at night, I'm happy to, I used to smoke a bong, back from the Cheech and Chong days, and have 2 or 3 glasses of wine. Sure, that's fine. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, I have to be out the door and I have to perform. And what I do behind closed doors is like music, religion, and sex. What I do on my own time belongs to me. But if I owe a company 10 hours a day, that's what they should be teaching, I believe. And, I smoke pot to this day. I have a medical card here in Florida for the asking. I said, I had depression. And yes, this is tongue in cheek, but I basically went in and said, yeah, I'm depressed. My phone bill is too high this month. I'm depressed. And they gave me a card, and off I go. But that has nothing to do with, 6:30 to 7:30.
Now, Michael, I'm just curious, how, if you don't mind me asking, and if I'm getting too personal, again, please tell me. I promise I won't be offended. How often would you say that you do smoke pot? Every day? Twice a week? Once a week? Once every 2 weeks?
I'm outside on my patio watching ESPN, and I'll smoke half a joint or something, and come in and brush my teeth and go to bed. It's routine, but nothing to do with when the sun's out.
No, I understand. You're saying when you wake up in the morning, you're sober and you're not stoned. Obviously, you slept the whole night, and when you're on the job, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you don't do anything. So, but you're saying you're a daily pot user, correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
Now, Michael, I'm just ballpark. How long have you been a daily pot user? Again, if you don't mind me asking.
Since boarding school, so maybe 15 years old.
All right. So, and I figure what are you, 50 now, 60 years old?
60, going on 60, yep.
All right, 60. So basically you've been a daily pot user, you would say, for 45 years?
Yes, Jeff.
Okay. No. The reason why I'm asking is this, Michael, in all seriousness. Again, there was this huge study done in Britain, okay, and I want to get your take on this. And so they had a trial, and they separated 2 groups of people, and they were very similar in background, very similar in education. They were as similar as they could possibly be. Both groups did not drink alcohol. One group was essentially, me. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they've never used drugs, but in particular when it came to pot, they never smoked pot. The other group smoked pot almost on a daily basis. They said 20 times every month. In other words, basically 20 days out of 30. And so they monitored this group when they were 18 years old, then again at 21, at 26, at 28, at 32, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But then it was 38. And that's when they stopped the study. So over 20 years, periodically. According to them, I just want to get your take on this. They said the group that smoked pot, again, almost daily, over a 20-year period, they say they lost about 6 to 8 IQ points, meaning permanently those IQ points are gone. Now, it's not the end of the world. 8 IQ points is not going to make you an imbecile or an idiot, but it does dumb you down a little bit. That's according to them. What say you? Agree? Disagree? Have you felt anything like that in your life?
Well, I agree. Again, it's situational. My wife just enrolled at Oxford University, and she smokes pot occasionally. As I told my 15-year-old daughter at the time, she got caught, using cannabis, and I said, I had to have that parent-to-child conversation that some of us have to have that, look, it's going to make math really hard for you. Okay? So if you're at a party on a Saturday night, that's one thing, but if you're stoned at school, it's going to make algebra really, really tough. I'm here to tell you by experience because I got stoned and went to algebra class or accounting 101, and it was a dumpster fire. And then, if you're sober and your head's clean, it's, that's how I graduated.
Interesting. Michael, thank you thank you for your honesty and thank you for your call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Anthony in Nashua. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you, Anthony?
Jeff, I'm doing fantastic, and I love you in a non-sexual way, and I love all of your listeners in a non-sexual way. You're right. Best audience in the business. I listen to you every morning. I'm an Amazon Flex driver, so I'm a subcontractor. I work for myself, hard-working, get up every morning, work 6 days a week, and I'm a daily pot user. I've been a daily pot user since I was 17 years old, a junior in high school. And I think it really depends on who you are as a person, because I don't feel like it affects me anyway. I don't feel like I'm getting dumber. You know what I mean? I consider myself a very smart man. People I talk to tell me I'm a very smart man all the time. And I feel like it's more or less who you are. Because, for example, I do not drink alcohol at all. Did it a little bit back in high school, experimenting, but I didn't.
Don't swear. Say bull crap, say BS. But please don't the F-bomb and bull. Because I'm going to get fined. So please, Anthony. But we've dumped it, right, Mike? Okay. So please, Anthony, we're going to keep you on. We're going to bring you back on. But please don't swear because then I'm going to have to drop you. But go ahead, Anthony. The floor is yours. Keep going.
Deeply apologize.
No worries. Go ahead.
Apologies. But I feel like it really depends on who you are and taking personal responsibility for who you are. For example, just recently in New Hampshire, they passed, you don't have to get the inspection sticker anymore. And some people are like, oh, well, it's going to lead to more car accidents. Well, will it really? Because people should be taking personal responsibility for their own safety and the safety of others on the road and make sure their ride is safe to go to work every day. Just like with smoking. I don't smoke while I'm working, but when I'm done with work, I love to light up a pre-roll. You know what I mean? And I can still function and live my life, a daily life. I feel like it's better than regular pharmaceutical drugs because I think those are just, I don't trust, pharmaceuticals that much. I'm a God-fearing person. God made weed, man made pills. Who are you putting your faith in? But, I think it really comes down to who you are as a person, personal accountability and responsibility, knowing your limitations, like, okay, well, I've had enough. I'm going to put this down. I'm done for the day. And then going on about your life. I don't feel like it's that big of a problem, but I could be wrong, and people could disagree with me, but I think it really comes down to who you are, because I eat like I'm a teenager. I drink coffee every day. I drink 3-4 medium iced coffees a day, and I eat crap. I don't eat veggies. I don't eat fruits. You know what I mean? But I'm healthy as a horse. So
I'd kill to have your genes. That's what I'm talking about, man. Honestly, if I had 3 or 4 iced coffees a day, Anthony, I swear to you, I wouldn't sleep for 3 days. I'm so sensitive to caffeine. The one bottle of Coke Zero is about all I can handle in terms of caffeine. No vegetables. I'm dead. I'm dead in 2 months, Anthony. Anthony, I've got to ask you this, my friend. Again, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. Do you buy or get your pot, cannabis, marijuana, whatever? Do you get it from a dispensary or do you grow it yourself at home?
Not getting too personal. I used to get it from trusted street sources, and then it went legal. So I go down to Massachusetts because I worked in Massachusetts a lot. So I get it at dispensaries, down in Massachusetts. because, I feel like that's a little bit more regulated, like it's a little bit more safer than the street stuff, because you never know what you're getting in the street stuff nowadays. I mean, it could be laced with fentanyl for all I know. So that always scares me. But I've never wanted to touch another drug. Those people that say, oh, it's a gateway drug, it's going to lead to cocaine, it's going to lead to you doing hell. No, it's not. I've been a pot smoker for 20 years. If that's what you like, then that's what you like. If you need a higher fix and you have an addictive personality, then yeah, you're going to go to the higher drugs. But I've never felt the need to go to a higher drug. I mean, I should be dead right now. I'm almost 39 years old. I'll be 39 next month. And I should be dead for the way I eat and the way I do stuff, but somehow I'm healthy as a horse. So I don't know. I think
you got good genes. I'm telling you got a great constitution. You got really life is not. Do you have a full head of hair? If you don't mind me asking.
I do. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You see what I mean? You screwed me twice over, buddy. You got a better constitution than I have, and you got better hair than I have. I'm practically bald, and I was already balding by the time I was 40, basically your age. So, God, what can I tell you? He doesn't spread the wealth around equally. He gave you great constitution and he gave you great hair. Anthony, I've got to ask you, when you go down and you buy the marijuana products, do you feel that, let's say over the last 20 years, is it more powerful? Is it more potent? Do you feel that they've loaded it up now with more THC? I'm just curious.
I've loaded it up some with more THC, but I also think it depends on your tolerance level, who you are, you know what I mean? Some people can sit there and drink a 6-pack of beer. Some people can get drunk off of 1 beer. So you have to know your body chemistry and know who you are and know how much you can take in. And I think some people, especially if you smoke for many years, you might need, a little bit of a higher tolerance level versus you might need mid-grade or lower. You know what I mean? I think it really depends on who you are and knowing your body and knowing what you can take in. But it has gotten a little bit more powerful over the last 20 years. Definitely agree, especially with it becoming legal. But I like I said, I think that's just a different level. Like, do you like drinking a beer or a wine, or do you like drinking hard alcohol? You know what I mean? Do you want to do something on the low spectrum or the high spectrum? I think it depends on what you're feeling, who you are, what your body can handle. But then again, like I said, it comes down to square one: personal accountability and responsibility. People need to be responsible. And I think that they will be fine with that.
Anthony, thank you very much for that call. And stay safe on the road, my friend. 617-266-6868. Brian, so do you agree? Anthony lays it out there saying, look, ultimately it's personal responsibility. And if we're going to live in a free society, people should be accountable and responsible for their actions. So there's a lot of you that believe, no, make it legal. Keep it legal, not just in the States, but if people want it in all 50 states, let it be in all 50 states. Do you agree? Or, for example, Ann Coulter has written a brilliant column. I mean, well written. When I say brilliant, just a really well written column saying that this is creating, in her words, a nation of stoners. And that there's a lot of false advertising now being pushed with these marijuana products being made legal. And that people don't really understand fully the devastating mental, physical, and mental health effects. And she believes that it should be made illegal. And she definitely doesn't want it reclassified as a class 3 drug. She wants to keep it as a class 1 drug. So conservatives are split. Where do you stand? 617-266-6868. Brian in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Brian. And welcome.
Yeah, I totally disagree. The thing is, just because you aren't affected by it doesn't mean the next person is. It comes down to genes, and it comes down to immune system. The thing is, some people can drink like a fish, like my grandmother, and she lived to 98, and she smoked also. Okay? The problem is that anyone that believes in cookie cutter things is wrong. The thing is, they don't have enough studies on the effects of THC, especially with the elevated levels. Okay, the problem is that marijuana, right, it's not physically addictive, but it's mentally addictive. And the problem is mentally addictive drugs are worse than chemicals because at least with chemically, you can use a chemical to try to, get off it. Mentally, it takes much longer. And the thing is that I'm an Uber driver, And I don't know, maybe everyone's stoned on the road, but people are blowing through red lights, stop signs. Well, it's Massachusetts. But the thing is that no, it should not be legal because we don't have enough studies to tell us how to figure out if it's going to affect us which way or the other. And, there are some drugs that don't. But the thing is, THC in high levels, anything in high levels is bad, just like you said, in moderation. But most people don't have impulse control anyway. So the thing is, giving them that ability, my view is CBD cream and all that stuff, the stuff would take out THC, fine. Don't legalize it with THC because it is bad for you. And as a person who is a military scientist and a chemist, I'm telling you, when you use it, what's going to happen is your body's going to get used to it. And then what happens is your body chemistry changes. And now you will need it. Okay, I don't know. I don't have enough studies to tell me the higher levels of THC is going to cause this. Okay, no. Legalizing any drug, okay, period. It is bad. Okay, natural immunity and, natural, stuff, things that will help you. CBD helped me with pain and stuff like that. But I'm Irish, Scottish, and English. Okay, so I know I can handle it, but that doesn't mean everyone can. Okay,
Brian. In other words, you got good genes, buddy. I hear you, Brian. I got to ask you this because I want to go back to Ann Coulter's column for a second because this is the argument that she makes. Okay, I don't know if I fully buy it or not, but it's an interesting argument. She's arguing that if you really want to understand the politics of California and the politics of Massachusetts and the politics of Colorado, she's really singling out many of these blue states that have legalized marijuana, not for medicinal, but recreational purposes. She goes back to that study about that it permanently lowers people's IQ. Again, it's nothing, it doesn't turn you into an idiot, but about 6 to 8 points. And what she says is, you know what 6 to 8 points is? It's the difference between, say, Massachusetts and Ohio. It's the difference between California and, say, Missouri, meaning how they vote. That overall, red state populations have higher IQs than those in the blue states. And a big reason is because they don't abuse drugs, in particular marijuana. And she says, again, she goes back to Soros, saying the reason why George Soros was pushing for the legalization of marijuana was he wanted to create a nation of stoners, make them as lazy, not that everyone becomes lazy, but make them as lazy as possible, as controllable as possible, as dumbed down as possible, as stoned as possible, as addicted as possible. And so she says that's why all sorts of things in blue states, whether it's sanctuary cities, whether it's high crime, people don't care, or many people don't care because they're all high on marijuana. They're all using marijuana on a sustained, consistent basis. And this is, she says, you want to see what's really killing America? It's not just drugs. But she says it's a key reason why. In other words, you start legalizing marijuana, you're going to have a society full of Bills in Sudbury. What say you, Brian? Does that argument resonate with you?
Pretty simple. Okay. Democrats can't afford to lose 6 to 8 points. Okay. They can't. Okay. All right. They're already dumb enough. Okay. They can't afford it. I mean, I'm wicked smart. I have a genius IQ. Okay. All right. But the thing is that it's just you must remember that not everyone has good genes, and that you can't, and some people can't test it, because my view is that, how about this? When you go vote, you must take an IQ test. And if you don't pass it, and marijuana is not going to help it, it's going to make it worse. Okay. So my view is that I think she's correct. I think it's just the dumbing down of America, making they like controller, and having the drug causes controller. Just like in Brave New World, Soma. That's what marijuana is. Soma's not bad in small dosages, okay, but Soma will dull your senses to when you live in a society that is just wrecking you. Okay, you need some medication to keep it up.
Well, Brian, look, it's an interesting point because you mentioned Brave New World. And I urge everybody, especially in the summer, you have a little bit extra time if you want to do some summer reading. It's a great novel. It's a well-written novel. It's a very enjoyable novel. It's not one of these, it's not like Tolstoy or, like Anna Karenina or War and Peace, where it's like 600, 800, 1,000 pages dealing with these, very heavy themes. It's very much like George Orwell's 1984. Aldous Huxley wrote a novel called Brave New World. And along with George Orwell's 1984, those are the two most influential novels of the 20th century. Huxley disagreed with Orwell profoundly. Huxley argued, no. The future society the threat to freedom and individual liberty is not going to be from Big Brother, from the jackboot on the neck. He said it's going to be from, in many ways, what we're living now, a hedonistic, pleasure-seeking society where individuals are going to be encouraged to do a lot of drugs, to inject a lot of chemicals. He said to be fed a lot of electronics, and that this way, through hedonism, through pleasure, through drug use, through pornography, through sex, that they will then become completely compliant. Okay, just to put an exclamation point on that last, the end of that last segment. So Aldous Huxley, this was a big disagreement between him and Orwell. Orwell thought, to simplify his message, that brute totalitarian force, Big Brother, the all-powerful state, was the greatest threat to freedom and liberty. Okay? Hence Animal Farm, hence 1984. Aldous Huxley, and they were friends, and in many ways politically they agreed on many issues. Aldous Huxley said, no. There is a great threat to individual freedom and liberty. There's no question. And it will come from socialism. But it's going to be sort of a hedonistic, promiscuous socialism, meaning that the government will eventually take over all of our lives, but not through the iron fist that Orwell warned about, but through getting people hooked on electronics, television, computers. I'm sure he would go on about everybody being on their iPhones and iPads today and on social media nonstop. In other words, this entertainment culture, they called TV at the time the boob tube, that all people are going to do is watch TV and game shows, and they won't know a thing about what's happening around them because they're going to be obsessed with entertainment and with drugs and with chemicals and with getting people stoned and with sexual promiscuity, so that people would just, all they would care about is living for pleasure. And by living for pleasure, you would become so decadent as a society that you would be willing to give up your freedoms and even be able to be manipulated and indoctrinated because they can constantly distract you. You won't care what's happening around you or with your government or in the world, because all you care about is your next hit, your next fix, your next TV show, whatever it may be. So Aldous Huxley, that's hence the term Brave New World. Now, Soros read Brave New World, by the way, many leftists have read 1984. But instead of reading it as a warning, as like, no, be careful, this is not what you want to happen to you, to your society, to your country, Soros looked at it as a blueprint. And that was one of the big reasons why he pushed aggressively the legalization of recreational marijuana. That's why he was one of the godfathers, because he said that's exactly what I want. I want people so freaking stoned that I can control them and the state can control them. By the way, people around Biden, it's coming out, read Orwell's 1984. Anita Dunn is one of them and said that's a blueprint. No, that's what we're going to do. We're going to spy and we're going to use the all-powerful state to control people, to censor people, and to spy on, do mass surveillance. So those two are the greatest novels of the 20th century, and they're there as a warning, but to the radical left, they're actually a blueprint. And here we are. Dana in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Dana, and welcome.
Jeff.
Hi, Dana.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple of points that I've been listening. Well, I listen to you every morning. I've been for years. First-time caller. And,
welcome, Dana.
And I just wanted to bring out a point that I haven't heard that I believe is 100% true. The main reason that marijuana is kept on Schedule 1, supposedly having no medicinal value, which we all know is not true. I know too many people that get good relief from it for a lot of different reasons, is because the pharmaceutical and alcohol industry are paying politicians big money to vote against it. And it's been that way for a long time. I mean, think about it. The pharmaceutical industry, they don't want you to smoke a little marijuana for some pain relief or depression relief. They want you on OxyContin and any depressants. That's where they make their money. The alcohol industry, they don't want you to have, smoke a little marijuana and then go to a bar and have 2 or 3 drinks. They want you to skip the marijuana and have 6 or 8 drinks. It's all about money and it's all about profits, and there's absolutely no reason to keep marijuana in a Schedule 1 drug. It's just pure and simple. And so on that point, I believe 100% that's what it is. And I know people in the industry that actually agree with it because that's what they've been told by the industries that they work for.
Well, Dana, I think there's no question. I'm not saying I doubt you on the alcohol industry. I've done the research, so I can tell you're 1,000% correct on Big Pharma. Big Pharma doesn't want marijuana. They don't want medicinal marijuana. They don't want any kind of marijuana because they'd rather have you on Valium or OxyContin or oxycodone or on a whole slew of antidepressants instead of, using something more natural or an alternative potentially like marijuana. There's no question. Now, the other flip side, though, Dana, is that you've got a lot of money now backing marijuana. And see, this is the thing. Once big money gets involved, it's like big government. It corrupts everything. It just does. And so what they're doing now is, it's not 40, 50 years ago with a 2-3% THC level. It's now 25, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% THC. And now you've got doctors complaining. They've got car crashes now where people are stoned on marijuana. They've got people coming into the emergency room. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so basically, the only point I was just trying to make, and I thought Dana made an excellent one, there's a lot of big money against legalizing marijuana, but now, since, it's become big pot, it's become big marijuana, there's a lot of big money now pushing it and pushing it hard. And they're leaving out a lot of the dangerous side effects now of this new marijuana. And there's no question, this new marijuana it's almost a new kind of drug. It is not the marijuana of, forget 50 years ago, of even 20, 25 years ago. Now, this is a really, really good text. And I think it really sets up the issue beautifully. It's from 603. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Jeff, this is a big topic, so I'm just going to make several bullet points. THC is not a physically active substance. And that's a point many of you have made today. You can become mentally addicted to using it, just like with food or sex or, yes, Diet Coke. You had to throw that in there, 603. Yeah. What are you Mike's buddy? I'm just curious, because this sounds almost like a Mike-style text. You had to needle the Kuhner man there, but let that go. So you can get mentally addicted to using it, just like with food or sex or Diet Coke, but not physically addicted. This is why there are no withdrawal symptoms when someone quits. It is also a non-toxic substance, unlike alcohol or nicotine. And, interesting. And this is why you can't overdose on THC, because THC is oil soluble. It gets into the fat cells, and this is why it will stay in your system for up to a month, unlike cocaine. I had no idea. Which is water soluble and is out of your system in 3 days. All that said, I don't think, and this is Dana's point as well, I don't think pot should have ever been placed as a Schedule I drug with harder drugs like cocaine or heroin. I do, however, believe that they have bred today's marijuana to be way too strong, to an almost weaponized degree. Now, this is where I think there may be some kind of a solution to this. Jeff, if it's going to be legalized in all 50 states, the government can easily mandate it to have, say, a THC content of 15% or less to keep it from becoming so powerful. Interesting. And then it's a long text, so I can't read all of it, but he says, Jeff, I also have a very real concern, and this applies to George Soros. How much of today's marijuana has been genetically modified? Essentially, GMO pot. I didn't even think of this. This is a great angle. Didn't even think about it. As a commercial truck driver, I do use marijuana, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. In other words, he's not stoned as he drives. 617-266-6868 is the number. So, I mean, there you have it. And, maybe they're going to have to start regulating the THC content. Because it is, I think there's no disagreement on that. Maybe one or two, but that this new pot is very different, much more powerful, much more addictive, and man, they've loaded it up with THC. And maybe now the state has to step in, and just as we regulate other things, we have to regulate this as well. Anyway, just throwing it out there. Keith in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Keith, and welcome.
Good morning to you, laddie. How are you this fine day?
I'm very good, Keith. Keith, what do you make of all this, my friend?
Well, I'm here to answer any questions you have. I've had experience since I was 13. I'm 66. I don't believe in this. It's too strong. It's like whiskey. You drink one glass, you drink none. I don't drink any, but they have it to 80 proof. They have rum to 151. It's just how you use it. You know what I mean? I do believe, though, that the Chinese and who else is getting in there and they're doing stuff to it in these laboratories where they're growing it in these warehouses. If you want to be safe, grow your own outside. I've done that. I left Massachusetts. I had 4 plants 11 feet high behind my garage. They worked fine. Nobody bothered me.
Keith, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. The plants that you grow, I'm just curious, what is ballpark? What is the THC content? Is it low or is it high?
Dispensaries?
I'm sorry, you mean when you buy them at the dispensaries?
I don't go to the dispensaries. I grow my own.
That's what I'm asking. So the ones that you grow, what is the THC content? Do you know?
I like it higher. I like the feeling. It's like Adderall for other people. I have injuries in my body, so I can't take morphine or Valium or any of those things. So I use this judiciously, and it works great in my life.
Keith, when you say a high THC, are you talking what, 15, 20, 25%?
I like about 30.
Really? Okay. Now, Keith, since you've been using it for many years, have you noticed any side effects, any symptoms from this use?
Oh, no. It's like anything. It's how you use it. I mean, you don't just go to a bar and say, hey, give me that bottle of whiskey and dump it down your throat. You know what I mean? Of course, there's kids that are stupid. We did the same thing drinking when I was a child, but I don't drink, so I have a couple beers, and that's about all I do. This is more medicinal for me. I actually make candy, and I'll have a candy before I go to bed so I can sleep all night.
You mean a marijuana candy?
My own. I make it myself.
I got you. And it puts you to sleep.
Huh?
It puts you to sleep, Keith?
Well, it relaxes me, and I'm not thinking about 10,000 things when I'm trying to go to sleep.
I hear you. No, because Mike says when the last time he tried it, he couldn't sleep for 2 days. That he was anxious. You've never done an edible, Mike. So was that a bong, if you don't mind me asking, or was that a joint, or it was a joint? Why can't you say joint? He goes J. That's what it's called. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm not up to the lingo, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm not caught up on all that. So he said the last time he tried it, and it wasn't an edible. It was a J. See how cool I am here, Keith? So, and he said it made him anxious. It made him nervous. He thought he was going to be invaded by space aliens. But you're saying for you, it will, you're saying what? You were starting to overreact to things, Mike? You know? Oh, you thought the Russians were coming. Was it? Well, Mike, I mean, which is it? The aliens or the Russians? And you just sat there immobile because you thought, and you watched TV thinking the world was going to come to an end. Okay. Well, all right. So Mike had a bad experience, but he says if I take it, I'm not sleeping for 3 days. You take an edible, a little candy, and you're snoozing all night.
Yeah, and I've actually shared it with other people who had the problem, people you would never suspect, and they're very receptive, and they like it, and we move on. I mean, I'm not selling it. I just share with people who are interested. I have a friend who has Parkinson's. It helps him a whole bunch. I actually gave him some for his birthday the other day, and he couldn't be any happier. He's able to sleep. It helps him with his walking, with his handshaking, and everything. So there is definitely medical uses that work good. Myself, I use it like Adderall. It helps keep me on the straight and narrow. It helps with concentration. I was in construction. I concentrated all day, got everything done. I used to work mostly by myself and busted out. No,
ass is okay. Ass is okay. It's the F-bomb and, bull. I can't say the rest. The S word. Keith, so you found that it didn't impact you in terms of your ability to work. Now, were you ever stoned while you worked, or you just use it after work?
Oh, no, we'd smoke one on the way to work in the morning.
Oh, you'd smoke it on the way to work?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely.
Interesting. Keith, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Have you ever used or are you using marijuana? I'm just curious. 950 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. So, I'm learning stuff about Mike today. I had no idea. No, Mike, in college, Mike could do a keg, according to him. And, hold on, Mike. And on the weekends, you and your friends will do a keg. Not all the time, Mike says, but he says he prefers to. Special occasions, you and a friend will get a keg, and the two of you, and you're saying, and Mike says that's 180 beers, Mike. Holy. A weekend, you and a couple of friends. Holy mackerel. But anyway, and Mike says that he prefers, the keg to weed. But, it's over the weekend. It's with a couple of friends. More in college now, but even now, once in a while, he can do a keg. Not by himself, but him and his buddies. You got to give them 2 or 3 days, but they'll get through that keg. And Mike says that he prefers keg than, like a J. It depends. Mike says he really wants to insist. It depends how many people are there. If it's just him and a buddy, he gets a headache. If it's him and a couple of friends, no problem. They start Friday night and they don't stop till Sunday. So, but Mike says that he feels a lot better. The buzz is a lot better for him than actually smoking a joint. So that's interesting. Boy, Mike, I'm learning I'm learning stuff about you. It's incredible. 617. It's a shame you never met my late dad, because I think you and him on the drinking level would get along great. 617-266-6868. Josh in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Josh, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Josh.
Long-time listener. First-time caller.
Welcome, Josh. Josh, I'm just curious. Can you and a couple of friends, can you go through a whole keg over a weekend?
Well, I was in a fraternity in college a couple years ago, so connect the dots.
Mike says easily. Josh, man, that's 180, cans of beer in a keg.
We used to have, my parents are listening right now, so I won't share too much, but we used to have kegs at our parties, and then they stopped letting us have kegs at our parties.
Whoa. All right, Josh, what are your feelings on legalizing weed?
So this is probably going to surprise a lot of your listeners. I'm 24 now. I graduated college 2 years ago, and I'm actually very against weed legalization. I think it's been a big mistake, honestly, because in my fraternity, you kind of fell into two groups. There was the guys who would go out every Friday night drinking, go to parties, do all the social stuff. I was in that group. But I had a lot of exposure to the other group in my fraternity, and they were the stoners. And something I've noticed with everyone I've known who smokes weed, first thing is they always say they're not addicted, but they do it every day. So I'm a little skeptical of it not being addictive. But the main concern I have with it is it seems to really drain people's ambitions, because of all the people I knew who were heavy marijuana users, I didn't know a single one who was actively pursuing their dreams, and even things like studying or going out to parties. The stoner crowd, it seemed to me, they were just content staying in their apartment and basically smoking it out. And I'm sure other people have other experiences with this, but at least from my perspective, being in the younger generation coming up, I do have some real worries about how many people in my generation use it so frequently, and I do think it's all by design. If I'm honest, I'm in the confessional with you.
Josh, do you think in 20 years a majority of Americans will be using marijuana almost on a daily basis?
I hope not. I think that would be really bad for our country, because I'll be honest, I know my parents are listening, but I've tried it a couple times. But from my experience with it really...
Mike, you cut him off at this point? This is the point. You couldn't give him another 5 seconds, Mike. Seriously.